As we speak, there is a hearing, Michigan House Oversight Committee, taking testimony from people alleging voter irregularities, if not voter fraud. Also, Project Veritas says it's going to be releasing tapes every single day for the next week of the morning teleconference meeting that the CEO of CNN, Jeff Zucker, has, in which he issues orders to his minions, orders that are blatantly biased, according to James O'Keefe, according to the tapes I've heard. We're going to talk about that later on. Now, as you know, AG William Barr, in an interview with the Associated Press, said that so far he's not seen any credible allegations of widespread voter fraud. After he made the statement, Donald Trump issued a series of tweets alleging voter fraud. And William Barr was quickly criticized by Trump supporters. Some even accused William Barr of being a member of the deep state. May I say something in defense of Mr. Barr, without whom I'm not sure President Trump would have survived the Trump-Russia collusion. Recall, he put out that summary of the Mueller report that many people on the left considered to be a mischaracterization, but it was enough to calm the waters down. He also publicly said that the Trump campaign was spied on, used the word spy, that Trump had been using. So this guy has had Trump's back. And a month ago, he issued a directive called a Memorandum of Post-Voting Election Irregularity Inquiries. And the directive says, normally we don't investigate allegations of voter fraud until the election has been certified. But given how unusual the circumstances are, I'm going to authorize you to pursue substantial allegations of voter and voter tabulation irregularities prior to the certification of elections in your jurisdictions in certain cases. Such inquiries and reviews may be conducted if there are clear and apparently credible allegations of irregularities that, if true, could potentially impact the outcome of a federal election in an individual state. So he's ordering them to investigate any credible allegations, substantial credible allegations, whether the vote has been certified or not. This is a break with normal protocol, and the election official who normally investigates these cases quit after Barr issued this directive. So how in the world can you call this man, William Barr, a member of the deep state, because he says so far he has not seen allegations of widespread voter fraud that would overturn the election? He still has his field agents investigating. So far, it hasn't turned up. So to turn on Bill Barr like that, I think is incredibly, incredibly unfair. Now, as you know, years ago, maybe you don't know, years ago, I came this close to running for Senate here in California. The Republicans ultimately chose Carly Fiorina. Now, I went to Washington, D.C. I was very serious about this, and some people were very serious about me. I met with a number of the senators, and I was also hooked up with a campaign strategist, prominent campaign strategist who's run a number of elections for Republicans. And we became friends. I've stayed in touch with him over the years. And I just had the idea, because he's always been a straight shooter with me, to contact him and ask him what he thinks about these allegations of voter fraud. So he wrote me a very long letter. I want to read part of it to you. Larry, I think people are falling into two groups now: realists who are truth seekers and truth deniers. The anomalies in this election are simply overwhelming. There's plenty of smoke. Pennsylvania had 570,000 votes come in a 90-minute period. Only 3,200 were for Trump. Michigan had a vote dump at 3:42 a.m., all Biden, no Trump, and no down ballot votes. Doesn't make any sense. Voting counting stopped in battleground states in the middle of the morning, all at the same time. A truck driver just testified that he drove 248,000 votes from New York to Pennsylvania. Yesterday, Barr announced no fraud. The question is, how did this happen? Dr. Nia testified in his affidavit that the volume of votes counted during certain time segments could not have been done by hand insertion into the machines. It had to be done electronically. Several days ago, a U.S. military team rescued the servers used by Dominion in Frankfurt, housed at a CIA installation, with a firefight, according to General McInerney. I think, Larry, we've had garden variety fraud, dead people voting, overwhelming ballot stuffing, running ballots multiple times, Trump ballots discarded, a Biden-benefited algorithm to build in his totals and diminish Trump's. I've seen screenshots showing 20,000 votes disappearing from Trump's totals and added to Biden. And when all that didn't work because of Trump's landslide, they had to use electronics and cyber tools to dump huge dumps of ballots. How do we know for sure? Impossibly high voting percentages in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, some percentages over 100. Finally, Sidney Powell's integrity is impeccable. She's getting heat, but I believe she's over the target. By the way, the founder of Overstock.com is also a cyber expert and a non-Republican. He's given his input on a number of interviews available on YouTube and also believes in substantial voter irregularity, if not voter fraud. These are my thoughts, he says. Now, they had a hearing in Arizona.
The Wednesday before the Friday that we quit voting, so 10 days before they quit tabulating, they thought they were done. And then more truckloads of ballots would come in, and I'm like, how can you not know how many ballots are still out there?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Would you repeat that?
Yeah.
They thought they were done.
They thought they were done,
and then there was
times.
There was what?
Multiple times. The people that were running the rooms thought they were done or almost done or were going to be done Wednesday morning, then Thursday morning, then Friday morning. Then it went on the whole next week. And I'm like, I asked the question, I'm like, you don't know how many ballots are still left to come in? So I don't know. I don't know who does, again, process project management.
Again, Arizona hearing.
I kept looking at the screen because it seemed very odd. And in the bottom right-hand corner was a yellow banner. And I got into a position where I could see the yellow banner, which said low confidence. Then I started paying much closer attention to the signatures, thinking this didn't even make sense to me because the signature on the ballot that was being compared to other signatures didn't even resemble in any way what they were comparing it to. They were completely illegible. They were just scribbles on the ballot. And there were 5 screeners screening low confidence ballots for an entire afternoon that I was in there.
Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany this morning.
Election workers there are facing threats because of the president's false claims about winning the state and his rhetoric throughout the election. Does the president condemn threats against election workers, or does he take any responsibility for those threats?
We condemn any threats against anyone. There's no place for violence. What I will say, though, too, is that the president's lawyers, they were doxxed by a left organization. Their private information put out, so we're seeing that happen to people on both sides of the argument, and there's no place for that ever anywhere.
Now, an IT worker trained and contracted by Dominion Voting Systems who worked at the tabulating system in New York claims she saw election workers illegally rescanning batches of 50 ballots for Joe Biden over and over to create more votes. Her name is Melissa Caroni, who spoke at the Michigan Senate Oversight Committee. She said she was at the TFC Center for a total of 27 hours. Quote, what I witnessed was simply fraud the whole 27 hours I was there. There were batches of ballots being run through the tabulating machines numerous times, being counted 8 to 10 times. I watched this with my own eyes, end of quote. More on this when we come back, 888-971, SAGE, 888-971-7243. Also, we'll be talking about the death of the late, great Walter Williams. I'm Larry Elder.